Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why is the middle class shrinking? Why are people facing an affordability crisis while marginalized individuals called informals grow in numbers? Join me as I travel the world, speaking with people living in invisibility, the leaders working to solve it, and uncovering the hard truths shaping our economy and daily reality.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy?
Well, things are crazy, and we're going to talk about them today on Katz and Cosby. John is traveling, maybe joining us shortly. We'll see. This is Rita Cosby, and we have Judge Richard Weinberg. We also have Rudy Washington, former deputy mayor, related to George Washington, right? Of course, Rudy?
Yes, and I'm still looking for my benefits.
You need to talk to John about that, all right? Yeah.
Keep looking, Rudy.
Yeah, keep looking. And we also have an awesome special guest for today, Dr. Kevin Roberts, the head of Heritage Foundation. We're so thrilled to have you here in studio.
Oh, Rita, the pleasure is mine. It's good to be with you.
And boy, is there a lot to talk about. We're talking about the primaries last night, and it really is crazy. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this country, and it's a perfect time to get your take, especially with the economy and so many of the big things ahead. First, the craziness. And it is crazy, guys. Judge Weinberg, I cannot believe, and he's probably going to Congress because it's in a blue district in New Jersey, this guy, Dr. Adam Holloway, who literally was hanging out with a convicted terrorist, and not just any convicted terrorist.
And much more than hanging out. He was his translator, his aide-de-camp. And we're going to have Andy McCarthy on later to talk about what his role was in the prosecution.
Who convicted the terrorist.
That's right. That's right. So, and we're fortunate to have in the studio my good friend, Deputy Mayor Rudy Washington, who was there at 9/11 fighting to protect the American people against this Islamist terrorist attack against us. And poor Rudy and many others, all these 25 years later, are still paying the price in terms of diminished health. And there were a lot of deaths because of it still going on. And this piece of garbage has the audacity to be a candidate for the Congress of the United States. He's an infiltrator. He's a fifth columnist. He's a danger to America. And I have to tell you, I'm absolutely furious at the people in New Jersey who had the audacity, the lack of moral courage to reject this guy, and he's going to be seeing in the Congress.
That's the sad thing, because, Rudy, as the judge was just pointing out, there were a number of candidates. So they had a choice. They had much more moderate candidates, Rudy. This guy was tied to the 93 bombing, and I want to remind everybody what it was.
Tell the judge, it's not enough to keep saying this guy. You need to tell people who this guy was, because this is how they know him. They know
by the way,
what
great
name,
point,
Judge.
Great
the blind
points.
check.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and I think, a lot of people know that term because that's how he was described.
So let's describe what the blind shake was.
Right.
He was the guy who was the mastermind who plotted, who helped Ramzi Youssef come over to the States to carry out the bombing of the 1993 World Trade Center.
Which is a dry run for what happened in 2000.
And by the way, it wasn't even a dry run. It was a bad run. They were actually trying to blow up the World Trade Center, which they successfully did, as we know, later on 9/11. So when you hear this...
I don't know if you noticed, but I was there day 2 after that happened.
Oh, wait, at day 2 on
93.
Okay, so now what are your thoughts, Rudy Washington, that this guy, and let's explain again, he was a translator for this guy, for the blind sheikh, from 91 to 93. The guy was plotting at that time. The bombing was in 93. He was bringing people over. He was convicted. This guy, blind sheikh, was very involved in the bombing, and others had ties to all these other Al-Qaeda figures. And the fact that now this guy who was chumming around with him is probably going to be the next member of Congress from New Jersey, that's disgusting.
Well, at some point, Judge, I think we need to do a show, at least a 5-minute, 10-minute segment on what is sedition. I think the public, people don't understand what that is.
Let's get Dr. Kevin Roberts, your thoughts.
My thoughts are, I agree with you, Rudy, about the sedition point, but it also underscores what I was going to say, which is this is an education problem, the fruit of really bad education, right? We've talked about this on the show before. Y'all covered a lot.
Yeah, and what do you mean by that? That it's just in the colleges? Because you're right. I would like to see the breakdown, Dr. Roberts. Was it young people who voted for this guy? Who are they? People who just don't understand the depth of what Rudy, obviously, and all of us understand about 9/11 and 1993.
Yeah, you assume the coalition is similar to Mom Donnie's, right? And the point that I'm making is we have a tendency to say there's an education problem at schools far away. The issue is this is the problem with our kids in our neighborhoods, kids in our communities, that we have to really lean into fixing schools in our areas. This isn't something that's distant that Washington only can fix. This is the rotten fruit of a generation or even more of really bad education.
And by the way, speaking of rotten fruit, the other thing is Graham Plattner. That guy, this is the guy in Maine who's running for Senate. The primary's next Tuesday, Kevin and everybody. And the latest that's happening in that particular case is that the Democrats, running away from him, like every turn, and I mean running from answers because they're
not
being approached.
From him,
not from him.
No, they're still backing him.
Yes, that's the point. Exactly. They are still backing him every time a journalist comes over. In fact, I was shocked to hear Bernie Sanders came out, and Bernie Sanders, we're having a little bit of audio issues I can hear there, but Bernie Sanders actually was asked about him. And Bernie Sanders came out and said, you know what, I don't know why billionaires are harping on this guy. It's because he's such a threat to President Trump and to America. No, he's a threat, I think, to women. I think he's a threat to gays. I think he's a threat to blacks. I think he's a threat to anybody who loves America.
Well, Bernie doesn't surprise me. However, it's Chuck Schumer that surprises me.
Moral compass.
This guy has a Nazi sticker on his chest.
Yeah. Well, he's an interesting guy. He's a pathological personality. First, he goes from being a Nazi, and now he's an avowed communist, and he's an Islamist. So he's just absolutely swell, and he attacks his own federal veterans, including somebody who won the Purple Heart.
Yeah, Ted Daniels, the guy the guy was getting Taliban fire, as you know, Kevin, taking fire from the Taliban, gets a Purple Heart for surviving, and this guy was mocking him and saying he's a coward and he deserved to die. So he's going after veterans. He said that women essentially deserve to be raped, that they should buck up if they've been raped, if they're adults.
Wow.
I mean, this guy, and he's running, and right now he's ahead of Susan Collins in a very important state.
One of the best senators we have.
I agree.
Common sense, centrist, who builds bridges between the parties.
And going back to what Dr. Roberts just said, in Maine, I don't think the demographic looks the same as the demographic that elected Mondami. That demographic would be older. So it leaves me scratching my head.
It's curious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's older, as you said, Rudy, and it's also a lot more rural.
Right.
And I'm with the judge. I mean, that all of us at Heritage, we're unabashedly conservative. And although the senator sometimes will vote differently, she's always a gentle lady. She's exactly the kind of person, personality-wise, that we want in office. And so the contrast with Plattner is really curious.
Yeah, it's surprising.
It's really shocking. Well, you guys, let's go to Ari Fleischer, the great former White House press secretary. Ari, what are your thoughts, first off, about what we are talking about? Let's first start with this Adam Hamaway, this Dr. Adam Hamaway. He's a plastic surgeon. He's a veteran, just like Graham Plattner. I'm sorry, I love my veterans, but I got issues with those two. But your thoughts, Ari, that this guy is now, looks like, on his way to becoming the next member of Congress. It's a very blue seat. There were a lot of choices, as the guys were just talking about, and New Jerseyans picked this guy.
Yeah, as somebody who stood at the White House podium on September 11th, 2001, I am absolutely stunned that the voters, even in a liberal district in New Jersey, could have an Al-Qaeda volunteer. The man moved to Bosnia to work for an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, knowing it was Al-Qaeda. I mean, this is stunning to me that somebody like that could get elected to Congress. And he will get elected to Congress now because it's such an overwhelmingly blue seat. And I think, frankly, Congress should give very serious consideration to not seating him.
I Ari, good for you, because that's exactly what they should be
automatically
doing.
seat people.
So explain, Ari, and I'm looking at the judge too. How can they do that? What can they do?
They have the right to talk about the bona fides of the members of the body. They can expel them.
Once he is elected.
Yeah, they don't even expel him because they never.
They can expel him if he's seated. And Ari's exactly right. They don't have to seat him.
And there's real precedent for this in American history.
Yeah, explain that, Kevin Roberts. We have also, by the way, the president of the Heritage Foundation. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Ari, thanks for everything you're doing. I was just going to underscore your point and the judges that this isn't some novel concept. This is something that's been used in every era of American history because Congress wants to maintain the integrity of its members, allotting the reality that there may be different political ideologies. That's not the issue.
And until we start pushing back, this is going to continue.
In this instance, we don't have to accept that we can get undermined from within, infiltrated within. We are a democracy, but we should not let al-Qaeda supporters take advantage of the fact we're a democracy and put their volunteers into Congress. We don't have to accept that.
So Ari, explain, and I'm looking at Dr. Roberts and everybody else here. He would get elected, right? If he gets elected, I mean, look at this point, and then he could not actually be seated. They just wouldn't swear him in. They would say, we're not going to take this. My fear is, and I hate to say this, I brought up Graham Plattner before. Today, you would have thought whatever his problem was that he hit a mosquito. That's almost like the way that, Bernie Sanders is acting. Bernie Sanders was like, the billionaires are upset because he's a threat to them and he's going to, go anti-Trump and we love him and we're going to win Maine.
Anybody's fine as long as they're against Trump.
Right. I mean, how bottom of the barrel do you have to hit?
Yeah, I thought we hit the bottom of the barrel in Virginia when they elected an attorney general who, right before the election, it was found out he sent emails saying he wanted to kill the children of the Speaker of the Virginia Assembly, and yet he still got elected. I think we are in an era now where the Democrats look at their candidates and say, Donald Trump broke all the norms. So if Trump broke all the norms, we now need to break all the norms, and we need people who will fight. And so they go to a guy like Graham Plattner, who is a veteran. They like his military background because they think it'll help appeal to centrists or moderates. And as long as you take on Trump, it doesn't matter how ugly you are, how vicious you are. It doesn't matter the fact, and this is what's really starting to trouble me, but all the additional things about Plattner, the fact that he said he's a communist, the fact that he has said things that are anti-black, anti-gay, anti-female, blamed rape on the female victims. Plattner, when he was on this app called Kick, and I had never heard of Kick, so I looked it up, it targets teenagers. He's in a towel, wearing just a towel on an app targeted to teenagers.
And Ari, I think you know this.
Making a big deal about the Epstein files.
This
was on an app targeting teens.
This app Kick that you're talking about, he's still on the app. That's the issue. He's been on it for more than 3,000 days, and he's wearing a towel. I'm seeing more of him than I ever wanted to ever see of Graham Plattner. And like you said, that group, it's women age 13 to 24. That's their app. What is a 41-year-old married man doing in a towel still on an app like that, Ari?
Yeah. I mean, there's just something weird about the guy, and he is really into violence. He has talked about how we need a revolution, and he said there's never been a successful revolution to come with an AK-47. He's an odd duck, and I think there's the only reason he's running for Congress is the only place he could get a job. He couldn't be hired as a school teacher. The PTA and the school board would say, no, you're not qualified. He couldn't be a cop. He wouldn't be able to carry a gun anymore. There is hardly a job in America he would get because he's such an oddball, except Congress.
Ari, he needs a therapist, not a senatorial campaign. That's what he needs. He needs a sex therapist.
Also, because Susan Collins is a supporter of Israel, he's attacked her as being in the command of the Jewish community in Netanyahu, and that she's bought and paid for by Netanyahu. What do you think about that?
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, as if Maine has a huge Jewish community. It's just part of how the Democrats have gone off the deep end on so many different issues. And, you said that he needed a sex therapist. A sex therapist ran for Congress in Texas 35, and she got almost 40% of the vote, despite it coming out that she's virulently anti-Semitic, who says she wanted to put Zionists in detainment centers. The Democrats have a real problem. They have a crazy problem. They have a go off the deep end problem. And it's not just in Maine. It's not only in New Jersey. They elected a socialist in the Democratic primary in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. The Democrat Party has not cleaned up its own act. Republicans have been going into its own party and cleaning up their act. Some of the wackiest candidates of all have either had to retire or resign or got defeated in primaries like Thomas Massey.
Or George
Democrats
Santos
are going through it now where they're electing the crazies and they haven't cleaned up their act.
Rudy.
Yeah, Republicans took a position on George Santos, one of our own, when the vote was very important to the president. We took a moral stand, and
that was led by people like Nick Lalotta, a congressman from Long Island. He's the one who started that. He's the first one to call for Santos to be thrown out of the Congress.
So I like that idea. If Ari made it or the judge about not seating people who undermine our Constitution. I mean, you just talked about two people that undermines our Constitution. Why do we have to?
You know, the great Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson famously said that the United States Constitution is not a suicide pact. And to your point, and to your point, Rudy, that's exactly, and to Ari's point, and to Dr. Roberts' point, that's exactly what we're facing. We have infiltration from within our country dedicated to destruction of this great republic in its 250th year. And it's about time we fought back and stopped this.
And, you know, your point's a good one, Judge, because this is not just a Democrat Party problem, and it is, but it's become an America problem, because if you're inheriting somebody like that as a member of Congress, and let's just say you got Mamdani here in New York, who wouldn't even march in the Israel Day parade, and then he's endorsing a very far left candidate, a Democratic socialist.
And a radical Islamist.
Right, radical Islamist.
Because remember what the DSA stands for: the abolition of the state of Israel and the total extermination of the Jewish people. So other than that, she's just swell.
Right, it's amazing.
And that's our mayor, who's supposed to represent all of us.
You know, this reminds me of Churchill, Winston Churchill, in The Gathering Storm. In the 1920s, he started warning people there's a gathering storm. And he was talking about in Germany what was happening. And they watched what happened until Hitler came into power. We're watching this again. I don't know where this is coming from. All this hate, I don't know where it's coming from.
A lot of foreign money, Rudy, a lot of foreign influence, whether it's the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, other nation states that feed this hatred. They're trying to divide and conquer, and that's what they're doing.
Let me go to Ari. Ari, your final thoughts, because this is really concerning.
The Democrats need to look inward. They are going through such a stretch of who the party is that the only rational person left in it is John Fetterman. And what Fetterman says now is what most Democrats used to say 10, 15, 20 years ago regularly. Now the fight inside the Democrat Party is between the progressives and the socialists. Even the liberals look good now. It's the progressives and the socialists have most of the energy inside the Democratic Party, as we've seen in recent primaries.
Really scary stuff. Ari, thank you. I'm so glad that you're with us. We love you. Nobody better than you on this. Thank you
very much.
Always great to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. And before we bring in our great guests in the studio, let's play a little bit of a song that everyone's thinking about today. Well, they did pretty well in California. They did great. The results aren't in. We're talking about the California mayoral and the gubernatorial. And the big issue, of course, in California was homelessness and affordability. And Dr. Kevin Roberts, I know that's one thing that you guys at Heritage are really focused on with the economy.
Yeah, and we need to be. It's almost as if, Rita, Americans are waking up and saying, I want to wake up in a normal country tomorrow. And Californians who were sort of at the tip of the spear at having to deal with the nonsense we were just discussing with Ari Fleischer, Plattner, and the soon-to-be congressman in New Jersey have said they've had enough because that crowd has been in power for a generation. And so what we're saying at Heritage as it relates to federal policy is let's encourage our members of Congress, encourage the presidential administration, in addition to the great foreign policy actions that they're taking, to be focused, especially between now and November, on the economy. That's what Americans care about. And this word the president doesn't like to use, affordability, is exactly the thing we need to be focused on. But for us on the right, to be articulating policies through some healthcare reform, some permitting deregulatory reform that we put together at Heritage, I think we've got a decent shot, Rita, this summer for Congress to pass what would be Reconciliation 3.0 because the ideas are good. Speaker Mike Johnson is vocally behind it. It sounds, just as we've been sitting here in this hour, that Reconciliation 2.0, which is going to fund our Border Patrol and ICE agents, is moving in the Senate. We need to get that done.
Hopefully, right.
So that we can, of course, talk about the economic agenda. So there are a lot of things. This is the upshot. There are a lot of things that are disturbing. We were just talking about a couple of them. But I think if you think about the opportunity we have in California, in Congress in Washington this summer, to actually deliver the agenda that elected Donald Trump and a slew of common sense candidates all across the country, this is the year to do it. And perhaps we can be encouraged because it's America 250.
You know, the other thing I think about, Dr. Roberts, of Heritage also is that the redistricting. Just last night, there was the big decision by the Supreme Court on Alabama that was favorable to the GOP. There's been some very good decisions from the Supreme Court for the Republicans. Obviously, it's always off year, so you go, okay, it's always tough. But I feel like the maps are looking a lot better for Republicans and not as good for Democrats. And then you have these crazy candidates, too. You throw all that in the mix. I want to also harken back. I was listening to Newt Gingrich, our friend Newt Gingrich, a little bit ago, and Newt was saying that he believes and I'm talking about Iran because that's a big factor, obviously, with gas prices, that if things can kind of come together, he was saying by Labor Day, and if prices then can drop, that's still enough time, and can sort of, because he believes things are going to drop immediately after all that's resolved. What are your thoughts at Heritage in terms of vis-a-vis the Iran war and everything like that?
They tend to track with Speaker Gingrich's thoughts. We're very supportive of the Iran conflict. You know, we ought to celebrate President Trump having the courage to do what he's done. And yet there are real economic consequences, right? That could have political consequences. So our mutual friend who's sometimes on this show, Dr. E.J. Antoni, great economist, says that it might even be after Labor Day, even if the war ended today, before you would feel some of the benefits in your pocket. But there's a mental side of this, especially in an election year, right? And I think what the American people, including those of us who are very supportive of the president's action in Iran, are saying is, you are such a game changer historically as president of the United States. You can do both of these things. Let's continue to wind the war down and really appreciate the victory that we have there, and also pay really close attention to the economy. Because if the left takes power, we're not talking about the old left that just wants to enlarge government, as we've been talking about this whole show. This is the crazy left.
Yeah,
they're going to really change this country.
I'm laughing. I'm looking at Rudy's face and the judge's face like, oh, my goodness, look what could be ahead, and which is frightening.
I mean, Dr. Rogers, I want the summer for the American public to feel the benefits of a growing economy.
Precisely.
I get nervous when I hear Labor Day because I know nobody's going to feel it.
That's right.
You know, you need this to permeate into food deliveries and everything else and drive food down, price of food down, gas down, everything down for the American public to begin to feel it. And I'm not sure Labor Day is the date.
I think to underscore that point, Rudy, because I agree emphatically, I think Congress, like the drop dead date for this economic recovery agenda, has got to be the end of July. So that as those members of Congress go home to their districts in August, they've got an opportunity to socialize this. That's right.
They can point to stuff.
By the way, we got a little bit of breaking news just coming in.
Breaking news, WABC.
The House, it says, has just passed. There are reports that it has passed the War Powers Resolution, which is sort of blocking President Trump. That's only in the House. But still, I bring that up as it's sort of they're fighting him every step of the way on whatever the issue is. And we still don't know about, the Customs and Border Protection and ICE funding. They haven't gotten the SAVE Act. I mean, what is going on, Dr. Roberts?
As the judge knows well, and I'm sure Rudy does, these discharge petitions, when you have a small majority, allow that minority party, which would be a majority with just a few more seats, to join ranks with a few in the majority to do things like this. The good news is the chances of that passing in the Senate are close to zero.
Right.
We have problems just theoretically. I'm sure the judge would agree with this at Heritage about the executive's war powers being limited in the ways that it's been the last 50 years. The president's prosecuted the war well. He's very serious in negotiating an end to it. We think that the Iranian regime only has days of cash left. My great friend and colleague, Dr. Victoria Coates, a friend of the show too, believes that we need to give the president the time to land this plane so that he can then pivot to the economy. It's really silly, not just for the Democrats to be voting for that, but for whoever the Republicans were. I don't know who they are, but they had to be.
I know. By the way, I was wondering the same thing.
Look, we're in war with these people, and it emboldens the Iranians. They think there's a split in this country.
That's a good point.
And that's a very dangerous thing. And I think.
But, Dr. Roberts just brought up a great point, was that there clearly were some Republicans for it to pass. So who are the Republicans? I mean, I guess Massey? Massey's one,
Oh, yeah,
right?
he's gone. He's gone.
No, he's still there until November, right? He's still there.
We're getting Joan Keene on soon?
Yeah, actually, we're taking a break. So thank you very much, Judge. That was a good tee-up, Judge.
There you go.
All right, good. We keep him on staff for the tee-up.
He's all right.
He's all right.
Not so bad.
All right, let's take a break, and we are going to continue right after that, since the judge asked. General Jack Keane with the very latest on Iran, and there's some big developments after the break.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby is General Jack Keane, retired four-star general. He's also the chairman of the Institute of the Study of War, Fox News senior strategic analyst, and lots of big developments coming in about Iran. President Trump, by the way, just saying to our buddy Miranda Devine, he'd be open to meeting with the supreme leader. And then this comes as Kuwait is getting a lot of missiles coming from Iran, including one that hit an airport. And the Kuwaiti airport has halted flights as a result of incoming. So where is this going? General Jack Keane, we love you. Where is this headed?
Yeah, well, certainly there's clear challenges here. Just to recap, for our audience a little bit, the Iranians shut down the Straits of Hormuz back around April the 7th, and we went into a ceasefire on April the 8th, thinking, because they had agreed to negotiate and open the straits in a 2-week period of time. They did not do that. They reneged on it. And we're still in negotiations with the Iranians since that time. Now it's approaching, as we know, almost 8 weeks, with the promise that there may be a deal, and indicating to our negotiators that it appears, at least on the political side, that the Iranians do want to make a deal. But what else is happening, and you put your finger right on it, we've had anything but a ceasefire, because for several weeks now, the Iranians have been using drones to attack shipping in the Straits of Hormuz. They shot down one of our drones in international waters. We've had to respond against all of that. And they've also have attacked U.S. bases in the region, and as well as Bahrain and Kuwait last night, and did serious damage to the international airport at Kuwait, where many of us have flown in and out of. And I understand over 60 people have been wounded there as a result of it. So that doesn't sound much like a ceasefire, although the political people still saying they want to make a deal. But even worse than that is on April the 17th, a ceasefire was agreed to in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. And according to the terms of the agreement, I read the entire thing. It was just a page and a half. Israel can defend itself against an attack that's planned, it's imminent, or it's in execution. And as such, during this entire time from April 17th to the present, the Hezbollah have fired 2,400 plus rockets and drones into northern Israel, forcing evacuation of many of the towns and villages that are there. And some of them are the villages around the Sea of Galilee, where maybe some members of our audience have visited. And over 300 Israeli citizens have been wounded, civilians, as a result of that, and one killed. And also 15 Israeli soldiers have been killed in southern Lebanon. And as a result, what we can see there is Hezbollah is really making all-out war on Israel. And so our audience can understand, the simple analogy would be, if the Mexican cartels were so frustrated because we're shutting down their drug and human trafficking operation in the United States and flew scores of drones into a couple of our border towns in the Southwest, and wounded some of Americans, you can imagine what our response would be. No nation can stand that kind of an attack on its citizens. And, for our audience also to remind ourselves, Iran's goal when they say they want to destroy the state of Israel, they don't mean a physical destruction of the Israeli military, which they cannot do, or the state itself, all of its infrastructure, they cannot. What they really mean is they want to make the security situation so volatile that people do not want to raise their children or grandchildren there anymore. So this is a step in that direction. Israel recognizes it as such. So at the same time, we're trying to make a deal. It's pretty hard to make a deal with the IRGC leadership, who really is in control of the country, working for the Ayatollah. It's not the political leaders. And the IRGC leader is a man by the name of Ahmed Vahidi. It's his forces that are attacking in the Straits of Hormuz, and it's he that's directing Hezbollah to conduct all-out attacks against northern Israel. Meanwhile, the political side of the regime is trying to negotiate a final settlement with the United States, and we know our president will not take a perfect deal. I mean, he will not accept anything but a perfect deal. And the negotiations are being dragged out as a result of what the Iranians are doing, mainly. I mean, I think we're at a point, John and Rita, where we should really establish a deadline and get on with this thing. Are you going to make a deal or not? And if you're not going to make a deal, then we should return to military operations and finish this regime once and for all.
How long, and I know, General Keane, there's so many factors. What kind of a deadline, if you were suggesting it, what would you suggest given the dynamics just in general?
I would suggest a 30-day deadline starting now. Did get on with this. President Trump has done this in the past. Prior to the 12-day war, he was trying to go into negotiations with the Iranians. He gave them a 60-day deadline, and negotiations did not get where they should have gotten. And on the 61st day, he greenlighted Israel to begin the 12-day war. And I think we should go back to that kind of a regimen. We've been at the negotiations now for almost 8 weeks. I don't think we need to go another 60 days. Deadline 30 days. Take it or leave it. And if they leave it, as I suspect they will, then let's go ahead and force their economic and military collapse completely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with that. Time to move on to decimate them and really bring them to the table. 100%. Rudy, real quick, if you could.
General, I'm scratching my head. I don't understand it. If we could decimate them now, what are we doing? Why don't we just finish this now?
Well, I think my position was I didn't think we should have gone to the ceasefire back on April the 7th.
Amen. I agree with you.
I think we should have continued military operations. We were 4 to 5 weeks in. We had 2 weeks to finish it. And I think we should have finished our assigned objectives. So that's where I am. Knowing where the president is and his negotiators, I think they want to give these people some more time. Yes, I would like to see us go right back based on what's happening in Hezbollah and in the Straits right now. I don't think that's where they are. I think give them 30 days and then let's do it. And I think in the final analysis, Rita and John, I'm not sure that this regime is really going to make anywhere near the deal that President Trump is expecting. And they also want a financial relief. There's talking about the possibility of creating some kind of an investment fund for them. If we do that, something like that, not only will they survive, but they'll recover, and they will, whatever they sign, we know they're going to cheat, and they will try to reverse everything that they said they're signing on a piece of paper. They're not going to fully implement it, and we can't give them money to help them recover and reverse everything that they signed and said they would not do or said they would do.
I agree.
That's where they are.
I agree. We can't help them. General Jack Keane, we love you. Thank you so much for your great analysis. As always, General, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Great talking to you all, as always.
You
Take
too.
care.
You too. Thank you so much. And everybody, now here are the big headlines of the day.
It's the top news of the day. Here's Rita Cosby.
And we were talking about California dreaming. Well, California is still counting the votes right now after the big Tuesday primaries. Reality TV star Spencer Pratt is close to securing a spot on November's ballot to go up against L.A. Mayor Karen Bass. Meanwhile, Democrats Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer, along with Republican Steve Hilton, are vying for the 2 spots in November's general election for governor. And it could take a few more days. It could even take a week or 2. That's California, guys. And also, security spending on President Trump's White House ballroom is being stripped from an immigration package. The GOP removed the ballroom funding, which had sparked significant debate among lawmakers. There were fears the funding would have derailed the entire immigration package on technical grounds. And those are the big headlines. We're coming up. We're going to be talking with Nicole Maliotakis. Wait till you hear about some of the new sanctuary city policies in New York. And Tom Fitton, you know he always has some bombshell stuff coming up from Judicial Watch.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and joining us now is the great Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis from New York. And before we get on a whole bunch of other topics, I got to ask you your thoughts, Congresswoman, on what's going on, especially when it comes to what's going on in crazy New Jersey at the ICE facility there. Because I don't know if you heard this, but the mayor says he's going to lift the curfew because he wants First Amendment. And then you got the Secretary of Homeland Security today saying it's not free speech when you bite, when you kick, when you punch federal agents.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that the local elected officials are actually making the problem worse. Instead of actually trying to bring down the temperature and, get the situation under control, they're actually doing things to make it worse. And that's unfortunate. I have legislation I've just introduced, by the way, actually prior to what was happening in New Jersey, that would require 15-foot buffer. So protesters can have their right to free speech, but they cannot interfere and be in the way and hinder law enforcement from doing their jobs. And again, it's not freedom of speech when it's actually agitating. And not only that, we've heard horrific threats. I'm glad that we're seeing the Justice Department go after the individuals who have threatened the lives of these police officers. That they said that they were going to kill them, they were going to kill their children. They know who they are, they know what they look like, where they live. Very scary stuff that's happening, and it's really, I think, the temperature has gotten too hot, and it's because a lot of the elected officials are out there and they're saying things that are not true, and they're agitating the situation and making it such that we're seeing this type of horrible activity happening that could lead to somebody getting seriously injured or worse.
And then you got the New York State sanctuary law that just went into effect, where the governor is essentially saying, no cooperation with the locals and saying no mass on federal agents. I mean, that is completely unfair when they're getting death threats to their home.
Yeah, I mean, look, New York has seen some horrific crimes caused by illegal immigrants, right? You had the guy who put a lighthouse on fire, killed multiple people. You had the guy who shoved the elderly veteran in the subway tracks, killing him. You've seen multiple crimes take place of individuals who were driving under the influence and killed people in our region. And it's just like one thing after another. And what is the governor and the mayor doing? They're actually doubling down and actually making it even more difficult. And let's remind everybody that Laken Riley, who was killed in Georgia by an illegal immigrant, that individual, that perpetrator, was in New York. He was arrested for a crime. He was released back onto the streets because of New York sanctuary laws. And he went over to Georgia and killed Laken Riley, another preventable murder. So I've just given you, four or five examples of American citizens who were killed in our area. Most of them were in New York, and the DUI was in New Jersey. But in our city that were killed by people who were here illegally. And what does the governor do? She says, we're going to make it harder for ICE to do their jobs, and we're going to punish any county or any municipality that allows their law enforcement to cooperate in any way. That is just really, really short-sighted. It's going to end up leading to more people getting hurt. And, I think if you had more cooperation, actually, we wouldn't see the chaos that we've seen in the streets, whether it be in Minneapolis or whether it be, now in New Jersey. If there was actual cooperation where the people who ICE requested detainers for, if they were turned over, you wouldn't have this type of stuff spilling out onto the streets. And, when you talk to, ICE, and they tell you they deny all these detainer requests for horrible, horrible, dangerous people that have committed horrific crimes. They will not cooperate under any circumstances to help turn those people over. And I think we got to go after those judges too, by the way, the judges who are helping people sneak out the back door, when it comes to criminal court.
Yeah, that one, especially that one in Wisconsin. Oh, my gosh, Congresswoman. Here's Rudy Washington.
Nicole, I think it shouldn't be missed on people that night before last, that was the state police they attacked. It wasn't even ICE. They went after the state police.
Yeah, anybody in uniform.
This is the same crowd that's defunding the police, So none of this makes any sense. They want zero law enforcement.
That's right. I mean, and look, we know their policies don't work. We know that what they're trying to do here, they're trying to dismantle ICE. They're trying to dismantle local law enforcement. These are not people who want law and order in communities. These are not people who care about public safety of you and your families. I mean, they are people who, at the end of the day, all they do is try to make it more difficult for law enforcement to do their jobs, or they're driving them out. Here in New York City, we're fortunate, that things are not turning out the way Mondani said they would when he said he was going to, defund the police. He was the leader of the defund the police. And then he was the person who said he was going to do a hiring freeze and not hire any more cops. Well, you know what? Thankfully, we have NYPD Commissioner Tish there, and she's doing a decent job. He's letting her run the department, and we are seeing, they just announced they're going to be hiring some more cops. And I met with her last week. They're going to be coming, some of them, to my district. We've had a long-standing issue with cops being taken away from our district and moved to other districts. That's not going to be happening anymore. And so we're happy about that. So, look, we do what we can to help the police and back the police. I think it's really important. I'm proud of delivering millions of dollars for our NYPD and federal funding, and I'll continue to do that. But look, I think we learned in 2020, right, what it was like when you don't support our police. And we saw the chaos on the streets of New York City. Let's not go down that route again.
Yeah, we cannot have it go there again. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you for always fighting the good fight for our men and women in blue. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you guys, let's go to Tom Fitton, head of Judicial Watch. And Tom, it's great to have you back on the show. Last time we were talking about all the folks on the voter rolls. They had some stunning numbers. You guys do such great work. And now you are suing the CIA. Explain it.
We're always suing the CIA.
Well, how about this week? What are you suing them for this week?
Hold on a second. I was prepared to talk about voter rolls again.
Well, what about the Brennan? Well, by the way, do you have an update on the voter rolls? Go to that first if you got it.
We just sued California because there are 873,000 names that are dirty on the list. They've had names going back as long as 10 years on the list, dirty names. And the challenge is, they're not cleaning the names as they're supposed to. So that means you get people who move away and almost assuredly start receiving ballots at their former addresses.
Wow. Do we know where in California, by the way, Tom? Because, boy, is that relevant, especially given what happened, the primary, and we're waiting for results.
Well, when you're talking nearly 1 million names, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so it's a statewide issue. It's at least 873,000. When all is said and done, it's going to be much larger, in my view, because they are not even tracking what they're doing as they come as they're supposed to. It's a simple process. Hey, if you don't vote, they send you a card. And if you don't respond to the card or don't vote for 2 federal election cycles, so this is a few years, they remove your name. They're not even doing that.
Wow. Now, what about when you talk about they don't remove? Are they dead people? Are there evidence of people voting twice?
Well, it's hard to know because if someone is getting a mail-in ballot and voting in someone else's name, there's no way to figure that out.
Wow. And they're waiting on mail-in ballots now.
And things you don't know. Yeah. The mail-in ballots make it nearly impossible to control for voter fraud. It really is a disaster in that regard. And on top of things, the whole system is undermined by counting ballots forever and a day. And so the big news that your listeners should be watching for is the Supreme Court. We expect to rule any minute now in terms of like before the end of the month, whether or not states can count ballots that arrive late. In California, they arrive for up to 7 days after Election Day, and they still get counted. And the court may end that like that.
Wow. And when could we potentially hear on that? And could that affect, by the way, if this decision, I'm looking at Judge Weinberg who's here, if that decision came down, would it be retroactive to this election or it only goes forward?
It should be applicable.
It should be applicable. That would be amazing.
Depending on what the ruling says, it could be applicable to the next federal election, which is November.
Right. They should. And that's the right thing to do.
Right. Those are federal elections. That's why that's where I'm asking.
There's an argument that the primaries aren't covered, but it's certainly going to make it harder for states to count ballots, as I say, forever and a day. Election day needs to mean something if you want people to have confidence in the elections.
Tom is absolutely right.
Tom, that is stunning. Now, before we let you go real quick, is California aware that they have 873,000 that shouldn't be on the voter rolls?
Oh, they gave us the numbers. So you betcha.
And they have done nothing to clean it up as far as you know.
No, they're fighting us. Obviously, we sued and hopefully we're able to get them to see reason. I mean, in Oregon, a left-wing state, they cleaned 800,000 names as a result of the settlement. Up in New York, your voting rolls, they cleaned almost 1 million names from thanks to a settlement with Judicial Watch. So it's just because they're blue doesn't mean they won't settle and do something that no normal person would object to, which is if someone moves away from the state and you know about it, remove them from the rolls.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, Tom, here's what you have to do. You have to come back on again so we can talk about the CIA stuff, okay?
I figured out there's like 3 lawsuits we filed.
All right, good. All right, so we'll talk about all 3 very soon. How's that?
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, we love you. Thank you very, very much. And you guys, as we were just talking about, this is stunning that in New Jersey last night, they elected Dr. Adam Homaway, and he is a plastic surgeon, but ties to a convicted terrorist, the Blind Sheikh, tied to the World Trade Center bombing back in 1993. And let's bring in Andy McCarthy now, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District. He was one of the prosecutors who went after the Blind Sheikh and had a very successful prosecution. I remember that well. Andy, it's great to have you back here on the show. This is Rita. We have Judge Weinberg and also Rudy Washington. Fill us in. First of all, your reaction that this guy was picked in the primary last night. It's a blue district, so he's probably going to Congress. This guy claims, I sort of knew him a little bit. He was his interpreter, right? He was his translator.
Yeah, I take some comfort, Rita, in that, he won with 28% of the vote in a crowded field, so it's still possible to say 72% of people voted against him in a contest where this had gotten attention. I wrote about it in early May, and Judge Mukasey, who tried our case, wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal around the same time. So it's not like this didn't get attention. But I'm not really surprised. I wrote a book in 2010 called The Grand Jihad, which was about the Muslim Brotherhood's infiltration activities in the West. And there's been a long-standing set of alliances between the hard left of actually left-wing parties in in the West in general, but the Democratic Party in the United States and Islamists. It's gone on for quite a long time, and we see a lot of Islamist organizations that demonstrate with democratic causes, argue for democratic causes. It's not all that surprising to see, unfortunately.
Walk us through what this guy's connection to, again, with the blind sheikh, and remind everybody of the role of the blind sheikh, too.
Well, yeah, I think it's important, Rita, probably to the most important stuff with Hamawi happened in 1991. He took a trip to Detroit with the blind sheikh and with a government informant. That's what his testimony was about. It's also important to understand he voluntarily testified for the defense. It's not like I subpoenaed him as the government lawyer to come in and testify as a hostile witness. He volunteered to testify. The blind sheikh was a very important figure in Islamist circles, in jihadist circles. When he came to the United States in 1990, he had issued the fatwa or the Sharia law edict approving the murder of Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, who made peace with Israel. So he was a well-known, notorious figure when he came here. We had a government informant who testified that in 1991 he drove the sheikh and other guys to this conference in Detroit, and basically the sheikh asked him, when this guy was in the Egyptian military, why didn't you turn your guns on Mubarak, who was, of course, Sadat's successor? Hamawi's main reason for being called to testify was kind of stupid, I think, on their behalf. It was to say that he couldn't recall hearing such a conversation. But from our perspective, the evidence that the blind sheikh wanted Mubarak killed was overwhelming. And by testifying, Hamawi merely corroborated what our witness said, that this trip to Detroit had happened. So I think in the end he was much more of a net positive for us than for the defense. And he did end up testifying that even though this conference in Detroit was supposed to be about Sharia economic principles, the blind sheikh spent his time talking about jihad. The guy conceded that, he talked about war on the United States, war on Israel, and he basically shrugged his shoulders and said, yeah, he talked about jihad. That's what he did. Like he was always talking about jihad,
So he's hanging around a guy who's always talking about jihad. He translated for him, right, for a few years.
And he's been an apologist for all these many years.
Right,
Is that correct,
and he's still anti-Israel. He's still bashing Israel.
Yeah, and it's beyond that. I mean, he went to Bosnia. I thought this was very interesting because the guys in our trial, Reed, I'm sure you'll remember this, they were caught planning simultaneous bombings. After the World Trade Center was attacked, simultaneous bombings of New York City landmarks. And we had such strong evidence against them that they really couldn't say they didn't do it. So their defense was that they had actually been training to go to Bosnia. They weren't really planning an attack on New York. And that was because the blind sheikh and people like him were always telling people to go to telling Muslims to go to the fields of jihad around the world, like Afghanistan and Bosnia, and participate in the jihad. And it turns out that Hamawi went to Bosnia. Now, I think he functioned as a doctor, but he did so under the auspices of an outfit called Benevolence International Fund, which was later designated as a front organization for Al-Qaeda, and I believe that the Treasury Department shut it down.
Wow. Andy, that is stunning details. You got to come back on again because sadly this guy is now the primary winner.
What we have to look at, Andy, is how we stop this fellow from being seated in the Congress if he gets elected in November.
Yeah, you got to come back on that one.
We have to discuss that one, Andy.
Andy, come back soon.
You got 72% of voters, I think, are open-minded on that.
Yeah, and you got 100% in the studio and on the phone.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy, thank you very much. And you guys, we're going to take a break. Joe Concha, right after the break.
Recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And 60 Minutes has fired their star correspondent, Scott Pelley, who's been there for decades. What's the real story? What's going on at CBS? Well, joining us now is Joe Concha. You can hear him, of course, every night on WABC, 9 to 10 p.m. Joe, what did you think of this? Boy, it's like dirty laundry coming out publicly.
And it was released by Scott Pelley himself, Rita. Let's be clear. So let's do a little exercise, okay? Everybody listening out there right now, number one station, New York. Go to your next staff meeting, and everybody's there, right? Every employee. And then go up to your boss and say, you know what? You're murdering this company. Say that in front of everybody. And then say, oh, by the way, you're not qualified to be the boss. What do you think's going to happen? You're going to get fired. And Scott Pelley did that exactly the same thing during that staff meeting with CBS, with 60 Minutes, and now is wondering, wow, why did I get fired?
And it was a new boss, right? It was a brand new boss who, like, he comes in for a meeting and tries to ingratiate himself.
Right, exactly, Rita. It was the first meeting for this new executive producer. And then Scott Pelley, who was invited by this same person, let's go to dinner. Let's talk about the direction of the program. Let's exchange ideas. And Pelley turned it down so he could wait for the ambush and hijack this meeting and insult his new boss in front of everybody. And now people are like, wow, Scott Pelley got fired because Trump wanted him fired. No. If you do that to your boss, everybody out there will tell you you will be fired. And that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah, exactly. That's not really a formula for success. What do you think, Judge?
I think Joe's got it exactly right. Speaking of formulas for success, I want to ask you about Jill Biden's book tour. What are your thoughts about that one?
Well, Judge,
by the way, she never saw Joe in bad shape before, only during that debate.
No, he never changed. He was brain dead when they ran him in 2020, and he's brain dead throughout 2024.
And she has to be brain dead if she thinks he's fine.
Well, she's a doctor in education.
That's
explains
right.
everything.
That's right. Go ahead, Joe.
Judge. Yeah. I mean, you got to say Dr. Jill Biden. She's
That's right.
Dr.
That's right.
Jill Biden. If you don't say doctor,
the
then you're
doctor's
insulting
in the
her.
house. Right.
Look, I mean, as far as like worst spouse of the century, she already wins. We're only at 2026. We've got 74 years to go, and she still wins that award, which is not an award you want. The fact that she thought her husband was having a stroke and then said, hey, we have a rally afterwards. Let's go to Waffle House. Hey, Joe, here's some syrup, butter, pancakes, waffles. What are you doing? Right? That is the last place you bring any spouse. She then from there said 4 more years. And Joe, you answered every question right. Well, the problem with that is that he would be, if he were president now, he would be there until 2029, age 86, when back in 2019, we know he shouldn't be a golf starter at your local golf course, let alone the president of the United States.
Yeah,
right?
you'd end up like in the putting green the whole time.
Exactly.
And Joe doesn't raise
guys that she wanted her own power. And everybody was asked, like, who is running the country? It very well could have been Jill Biden. That's why she wanted to prop up her husband for another 4.5 years, where he clearly was not up for the job. She wanted that because she wanted her own power. That's my final conclusion.
Well, remember, she ran, I think the only meeting I saw, the only cabinet meeting I think that was ever public with Joe was the one she ran. And then she said, you did a good job, Joe, just like she said after the debate.
You always did a good job.
Yeah. And then she said today that, I think Joe still would have won the election even after the debate. This is either delusional or she's trying to save the Biden name in terms of legacy. It is in tatters. It is the worst presidency and the worst family we have seen like ever in this country. And good riddance. Even Democrats are like, go away. We don't want to talk about this stuff anymore.
Yeah, the Democrats are saying, please stop. I'm begging you. So, Joe, you got to join us. What do we all stand for? Truth, justice, and the American way. Hey, thank you, Joe. We love you. Have a great day, everybody, and let's join Levin in Progress.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.